Welcome back, everyone, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast. It's Friday, February 4th.
That's right.
2022. Dominic, I just kind of slingshotted you in here.
Scared the shit out of me.
Literally, we were talking about Joe Rogan, and then we just jumped right into the episode.
Yes.
So here for episode 177, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, my man. You really got me going. The juices are flowing for episode 177 here. We're recording this on Wednesday, February 2nd, so I just have to give a shout out to my little sister. Turned 13 years old now. She's a teenager now. That just means we are getting old and gray, my friend. So shout out to my little sister, of course, as we record this. It's going to be a fun week to celebrate her, a fun weekend with friends and family. Of course, we're here in the studio to talk some fights. Going to be a relatively short episode, but that doesn't mean we got some good content coming your way for today. And I'm excited, man. How was your week? Are you excited for the weekend ahead and to have fights back in your life?
Yes, 100%. Happy birthday to Dominic's sister. Again, I know her name, but we'll remain anonymous, whatever. Right. But it's been a good week. The conditions out there for those of us that
stay safe.
I don't know how far stretching this storm goes, but the Midwest and the Northeast.
Yeah.
I know they're getting hit pretty hard by this. So everybody stay safe out there. I was told to work from home tomorrow and Friday, so that's what I know. I'm like, okay, this shit's kind of it's getting pretty real. So load up on groceries, make sure everybody's hopefully no power outages and stuff. That's what I don't want to fucking.
Yeah, that would suck.
I'm fine. I love working from home and shit. But if my power goes out, I'm gonna be pissed off all day.
Yeah, exactly.
But besides that, worries, potential bad stuff going on. It's been a great week. Orange, Houday, my Bengals, they're in the Super Bowl. We kind of teased it on Monday's episode because at the time the game hadn't happened.
Yeah.
That based on the result, you guys would know if it was the best day of my life or the worst day. What was the best day of my life? So I already put in for 2 vacation days for the Monday and Tuesday after the Super Bowl.
Oh, 2 days.
Yep, because I will be going back home for the Super Bowl for that weekend. And I'm just preparing for a 2-day hangover. So
true.
We'll go back to reality on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But that's exciting. And really, man, it's just things are good. It's just it's good to have fights back. It feels like everything's kind of coming together for a nice weekend.
Yes.
It's gonna be one of those cards that people are maybe not gonna be super interested in on the first glance.
Mm-hmm.
But I would definitely say it's one of those cards, the more you look into it, the more fights that start to stick out to you is like, oh, that might be a banger.
For sure.
Might be a banger. And, we just got done shooting our episode of The Nosebleeds. Go check that out. But, it was very clear, it's a great card to bet on. It feels like it's going to be a great card to watch. What can go wrong, right?
Oh, watch your mouth now.
True. Now, let's get into those fight announcements because this is going to be quick.
Yeah, yes.
UFC 273 on April 9th adds a bit of prospect versus prospect, and I love this fight.
Yes.
Albert Duraev, my favorite, my standout from Season 5 of the Contender Series, is going up against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, coming off of a Submission of the Year contender where he submitted the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ace that is Rodolfo Vieira in comeback fashion. This fight's fantastic. It really is.
Yeah.
Anthony Hernandez, another product from the Contender Series, I believe. And he's had, he's very talented, but he's also shown some holes, early on in his career. With that win over Vieira, yes, it was kind of a 1 in a million thing. We were like, how is Vieira gassing so much? How is this? And then he gets submitted. Who would have ever expected that? But I just think that Anthony Hernandez, whether or not you believe if that fight happened 100 times that he would ever submit Vieira again, he showed a lot in terms of his grit in that fight and kind of that a lot of heart was showed there. And that's something he's always had, even if sometimes his technique may not hold up over 3 rounds. He's always got that. But going up against Albert Duraev, who another one of those neck beard, bald on top wrestlers, quite good on the grappling side of things. He showed a little bit of susceptibility to the stand-up in his debut.
That was a bit of a back-and-forth fight, yeah.
He definitely showed something he might need to clean up a little bit. Not a lot of head movement. He's not... And he almost seemed like he was determined to keep that fight standing.
Yeah.
When he was going up against a guy who was a much better striker.
Yeah.
So if he tries to get into that kind of fight here where he's maybe a bit of ego and wants to defeat Anthony Hernandez at his own game, I don't know if that's going to go too well for him. So whichever guy comes in with the better IQ and sticks to a game plan, I think is going to get the win.
I agree. That definitely is a fun one for especially 2 prospects that can make a name off of one another.
And the last one, May 21st, an interesting heavyweight fight. Ben Rothwell coming off of a fight where he got mollywopped by Marcos Rogério de Lima.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal knockout. And he has to go up against Alexander Gustaffson, trying to go for one more run at heavyweight. He had that really disappointing debut against Fabricio Verdum, where he got submitted very quickly. Haven't seen him since. It's been about a year and a half. Are you interested in this? Is there any excitement left for Alexander Gustaffson, Dom?
It's hard, man, because, the guy retired. Then he's like, you know what? Let's come back. Let's try heavyweight out. And I was excited then. I'm like, okay, he's a big guy. Let's see what he looks like. Fabricio Verdum just did whatever he wanted en route to the victory there. Then he didn't retire, but it's going to be 2 years by the time he fights where he's been off again, and now he's coming back against Ben Rothwell. And that's a tough fight for anyone. Let's be honest. There's no one tougher than Ben Rothwell is. So it's definitely interesting, but in terms of like the excitement, it's definitely much lower this time around. I'd love to see Gustafson win. He's been such a great fighter at light heavyweight, had the amazing title fight with John Jones, one of my favorite fights ever. So, and even now, like if he does beat Ben Rothwell, are you trying to make a run? Or are you just wanting to maybe retire again but go out on top? I don't really know what kind of the point is, And for Ben Rothwell, the guy just keeps on fighting until who knows when. So it's not an easy fight for either guy, and it's just a weird one that I was not expecting.
Yeah, it's hard.
That explains it.
It's hard to get too excited because this is a tough matchup for Alexander, I think. Yeah. He's going to be outweighed by about 30 pounds in this fight.
I would say.
And even if you don't go by the weight, just the pure size. Alexander Gustafsson was a light heavyweight for most of his career. And yes, he was a big light heavyweight, but more so in terms of his length.
Yeah.
He's never been like a burly. He's not a Daniel Cormier, like burly.
He was just tall and long.
Exactly. While Ben Rothwell is just big.
A beast of a man.
Literally. So it's a really tough fight. Like I thought the Fabricio fight was like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got kind of his ass kicked there. So we'll see how he looks. If he shows something, again, I think you're right. Like even with a win, I don't know how much excitement can really be built off that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of the tougher fights he's gonna have at heavyweight. I know Ben Rothwell's not a ranked heavyweight. He's not, on a winning streak or anything. He's not young anymore. But the guy is a tough fight. Even if his cardio is not the best because he's 265 pounds, he does have a way of kind of exhausting his opponents by just laying on them, weighing on them over the course of 3 rounds, leaning on them.
And he does have power still, He
does still have power, but it's an interesting fight for sure.
Yes, that's the easiest way to put it.
And there's no other news, so we're just right into UFC Vegas 47, baby.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
We start with the main event. Jack Hermansson going up against Sean Strickland. 6 versus 7, Dominic, but number 7, Sean Strickland, the one that is the pretty decently sized favorite here. I think the big story going in is you got the momentum of Sean Strickland. You said in the nosebleeds, undefeated at middleweight, while Jack Hermansson, has been there, done that with the best of them. He's a high-profile fighter in UFC. He was high-profile at Bellator. His moments of weakness, the moments where he's faltered, have been on a bigger scale than Sean Strickland. Nobody seems to remember Sean Strickland fought Kamaru Usman once upon a time. Like, you don't know that because that was when he was unranked. Usman was unranked. They were welterweights.
On the rise,
Yeah. So Strickland's kind of been able to capitalize a little bit off that. The Uriah Hall win was very good, but Uriah Hall is kind of an iffy fighter in his own right. So my question for you, Dominic, do you think that the momentum that's building for Sean Strickland, is it deserved, or is this a little bit of a prove-it fight for him still in your eyes?
This is definitely still a prove-it fight, but it's not to just dismiss his momentum either. You know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, he's won 5 in a row, especially coming off against a 5-round dominant victory over Uriah Hall, who's another striker. And yes, Uriah Hall can be iffy in terms of pulling the trigger, but he's always dangerous and has power. And Sean Strickland just stalked him down for 25 minutes and made it look easy. I mean, he looked great for nonstop 5 rounds, never looked tired at all. So it's still a prove-it fight to me. Jack Hermansson is just kind of like a Swiss Army knife. He's got great submissions, but he still has 11 KO TKOs in his career too. He's a good grappler. He's not afraid to at least stay on his feet. He's competent enough there. So it's a really very close fight. I know the odds sway more than 2-1 in Sean's favor, which I'm not necessarily disagreeing with the betting odds, but I still just think on paper it's a very close fight. It's not a easy fight for either guy. It's not the hardest fight in the world for either guy. It's such a unique matchup, but one that really makes a lot of sense. I mean, Jack Hermansson's been kind of swaying back and forth, but he beat Edmund Shabazian. Sean Strickland is surging, so he's finally trying to get into the contender status. Hermansson's been there, not necessarily for the title shot, but he's been up there, right? So he's trying to hold a spot. Sean's trying to catapult in, and let's just see if the momentum can, in fact, take him that next step.
Yeah, I mean, that's really well put. It's a very close fight, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The odds can say whatever they want, but when I look at these two, I think they're kind of neck and neck in this division. Jack Hermansson has the body of work. He has the tougher resume. Not all of it's wins, but he's fought some really tough guys. Marvin Vettori beat him, but he had his moments, and he showed a lot of durability in that fight.
That was a hell of a fight, yeah.
And for Sean Strickland, we haven't seen him be tested in that way, especially at middleweight. And that is to his credit. He's got a brawling style, but he's so technical. He doesn't get hit all that much. And
good head movement.
He doesn't show any sort of worse for wear. It doesn't wear on him. It's not even like how a Diaz brother, when they get hit, and it cuts them immediately. Strickland doesn't even have that really.
And he just keeps going, man.
Yeah, and I mean, he'll talk to him in the cage.
Yes,
quite the personality. Let's put it that way. But I think it's a very close fight. Will it end up turning out like that? Who knows? If one of these guys were to get a finish, Dominic, I think that says a lot about where they are, because I currently kind of view both these guys as right outside contendership status. And winner, no matter who wins, if it's in the fashion I see it going, I don't necessarily think that it proves that they're a contender, but I think it proves that they're ready to test that out. I just think if one of those guys comes in and gets like a finish, I'm talking if Hermansson submits or if Strickland gets a TKO or KO, I may have to reconsider that thought and maybe look at these guys as real serious contenders moving forward.
Yeah, and I said on the nosebleeds, and I'll say it again here for those that don't watch the betting show, it's like, being that we've talked about the 185-pound division before on round tables and even when fight announcements are made. It's not that we dislike the division or anything, but when you look at the rest of the men's weight classes, this is one of the ones that's kind of stagnant, not like a ton of excitement compared to the others. And these two guys are fresh faces in terms of title contention, especially for a potential fight with Israel Adesanya, who's a relatively dominant champion, especially if he wins next weekend. So, a big win here, as Noah said, and a finish, as he also alluded to, really does say a lot and really could catapult either one of these guys into one one more win, and you might just be able to get a title fight. So there are big implications, even though it might not be like a main event that just steals the show, steals all the headlines throughout the week. You know what I mean? It's weird.
That's very true. I think that's because the division as a whole is not necessarily the most lively right now. It's a lot of stagnation. A lot of guys have already fought the champ Adesanya, so these two guys who are fresh matchups for the champ, a win and maybe you're in. You don't know.
Yeah, that could be true too.
Well, let's move on to a fight with the biggest prospect of the whole card.
This is a great fight.
Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's still kind of going under the radar, but I have seen a lot of people that are fans.
Yes.
A lot of the hardcore fans have really bought in to this guy's talent. And the odds kind of say, kind of illustrate that. He's a minus 250 as of now. But when I look at this fight, Dominic, against Carlston Harris is quite the prospect himself. I mean, this is an interesting fight to put Rakhmonov in because up to this point, he hasn't necessarily been fighting the most high level of guys, but he's disposing of them in the fashion you want to see a guy of his caliber do. Carlston Harris ain't that guy. But what's weird is both guys are high finishers.
Yes.
They finish their opponents at a high rate. But yet it's hard for me to imagine a finish either way because both guys are so talented. That's not really the way it works. So this could be a really eye-opening fight in terms of one of these guys could get a real quick, brutal finish. And that could do a lot for them in terms of saying, hey, top 15 next. Look at what I just did to Rakhmonov or what I just did to Carlston Harris. Both guys, big ceilings. I think Rakhmonov is better right now, and I overall think he has the better ceiling as a whole. He's shown more well-roundedness. I think he's got the potential to be a future champion. And while Carlston Harris could totally go out there and prove that he's the one that really should be admired, it's just hard to get. Rakhmonov is just such a beast, man. It's hard to look past him.
Yeah, this is the fight I'm most excited for on this whole card, man. It's well-deserved of that featured spot bout on the main card. Shavkat Rakhmonov is 14-0, 14 finishes, 7 KOs, 7 submissions. Everything's so perfectly symmetrical. He's only 27 years old, man, so that's kind of the biggest thing here. He's 7 years younger than Carlston Harris, but they're both 2-0 in the UFC. And for Harris, because you mentioned on the nosebleeds and even now, he is being a bit overlooked in this one. But he's on a 5-fight win streak. All 5 of those wins are via finish. So Carlston Harris is a legitimate threat here. I think that these two are just going to clash. I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I do see a finish either way, if I'm being honest. Part of that's because I'm maybe hedging some money from the nosebleeds too. But I'm so excited for this. And I think especially if Rakhmonov wins, improves to 3-0, 15-0 overall, I think he may just have a rocket launch to his back this year in 2022, a potential just humongous breakout year in this welterweight division should Rakhmonov win.
It's a good point. Let's move on to the rest. Let's start with the co-main event. Punahele Soriano looks to bounce back against Nick Maximov. I like this matchup a lot. I don't know if it's the one that should be in the co-main. And the reason for that is because while both guys are good prospects, they're both very green. They're in different ways. Nick Maximov had his debut against Cody Brundage. I want to say it was UFC 266.
Yeah.
He trains with the Diaz brothers. It's kind of why he got put on that card with Nick. So he's quite good on the ground. Punahele Soriano, very heavy-handed, good boxing ability, but both guys still have a lot of growing to do. That's what's been clear if you go and look at Maximov's tape even before the UFC. And for Soriano, in his last outing against Brendan Allen, showed a little weaker gas tank. A little, his striking isn't as clean as maybe it had looked once before against. I think he had gotten a win over. What's that guy's name? Sid, the one I say called Sid.
Oh, he knocked out Dusko Todorovic.
Yeah,
Todorovic.
Yeah, I remember that was a very eye-opening performance. But Brendan Allen. That one showed a lot as well for the gas tank. So this is one of those fights where it's kind of clear. Soriano needs to kind of get this fight over early, at least I would assume. He's really big. He that weight that I'm assuming he cuts a lot to get to this weight class. It weighs heavy on him.
Yeah.
So if his fight goes longer, that's going to give Maximov even more opportunities to potentially get this fight to the ground. Doesn't have the cleanest takedowns in the world, but if you have a tired opponent, you really don't have to have the cleanest takedowns in the world in order to finish them. So to me, it's all about the durability of both guys. That's really the test here. And for a winner, I do think these guys should both be on your radar. Not necessarily for this year, but in the next year or the year after. I think you're going to see quite the rise for one of these two.
Yeah, I like this one too. And just for what it's worth, two guys that are from the Contender Series going, one-on-one with each other. We're huge fans of that show. Two big prospects. I think it's going to be a fun one. But 29 years old for Soriano, 24 for Maximov. Could be, kind of a big outing for either or, depending on how the win goes.
So Smiling Sam was back. After his last loss, a lot of people thought that might have been the end for him, but they keep him around.
Yeah.
He was supposed to fight Phil Hawes. However, Phil Hall's having to pull out at the 11th hour. But who steps in but Brendan Allen?
Damn right.
The aforementioned Brendan Allen. So, Dominic, I know you're big on Brendan Allen, but, he is coming off a loss in this coming in here.
Just a month ago, too.
Yeah. And who was that against?
Ooh.
Okay. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
I'm going to have to find that.
It really doesn't matter to the discussion, but what I'm curious of, Dominic, is being that he is on such short notice. I know Sam Alvey is a susceptible opponent right now. He's got on a losing streak. But is there any concern for you as a Brendan Allen fan going in that maybe this isn't the right move to take a fight on such short notice like this?
Oh, there's definitely a risk here involved for Brendan Allen. I mean, Sam Alvey is a 50-fight veteran at the end of the day, man. So it's always dangerous. He's a guy that's finished a lot of fights too. But for Allen, I think he's hungry. I think he just wants to come in and get rid of that loss that he's coming off of. And, it's a chance to come in and take out a veteran at the end of the day too, because he fights a lot of the younger guys for the most part in his come up so far. He's 5-2 in the UFC, also from the Contender Series. For Sam Alvey, man, I just have to go back to your point of him still being in the UFC. And I'm not, trashing the guy or nothing, but you do see a lot of people saying, how do they keep bringing him back? Why do they keep bringing him back? He's on a 7-fight winless streak. I say winless because there was a draw in there. But, I mean, his last win was June of 2018. So for what it's worth, yeah, he's super active and he's willing to fight everyone. And maybe that's a reason the UFC keeps him around. But, man, if he were to lose another one here, I think it's hard to justify him staying. So, Alvey, you're fighting for your career. Brendan Allen, you're fighting to bounce back. And at 26 years old, this is still a big opportunity for him, especially taking it on short notice. Some people show that they got some big kahunas. We'll see if he does too.
Brendan Allen's a very tough matchup. But
yes. Going
Alvey's the one coming in prepared. He's been
exactly.
He's had the training camp. Yes, he was preparing for Phil Hall's, but that's going to be the interesting dynamic here. Is Sam Alvey is the one who's supposed to be the washed-up veteran. He has 50 fights, but hasn't won a fight in multiple years now. And Brendan Allen is the fresh, bright, potential prospect, but he's coming off a loss and he's taking this fight on such short notice. I think this is very dangerous. I mean, really, this fight feels like I'm going to be nervous watching this fight for either guy. Because career on the line for Sam Alvey, you got to think that. But then for Brendan Allen, if he loses this, and I know you could have the excuse of, well, he took it right, 2-3 days notice. But I don't think that's going to do it.
It's a setback. It's a setback.
Even if Sam Alvey is this, guy that has all this experience and he is a good fighter, he hasn't been a good fighter the last few years.
Yeah.
So if Brendan Allen were to lose in a back-to-back fashion in that way, I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get cut, but I think that it definitely might be a bit of a, back down to earth moment.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just not who we want him to be, and who knows if he ever will be. That might be the realization we have to come to if he loses this.
I couldn't agree more. That's a perfect way to put it.
Let's talk about the finals of The Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, you
Part
thought that already happened. Well, Not quite. The matchup that was supposed to is this in the middleweight division?
Yeah, this is middleweight. Yep.
Yeah. So originally, Bryan Battle was supposed to fight Tresean Gore. Gore had to pull out of the fight, so then Gilbert Urbina stepped up, which Bryan Battle had already beaten in the season. And while Urbina put up a good effort,
Yeah.
But Bryan Battle got a win. But now you get this matchup that was supposed to be the finals anyways. So Dominic, you're the guy that watched The Ultimate Fighter out of the two of us. So I want you to kind of break down what you saw from these two and what you expect going in.
I think this is going to be a really good fight. Don't get me wrong. Both these guys really little resistance during the tough season. Both had a couple decisions. Both had some finishes. And again, this was the original fight, right? Which means they were the two best middleweights on the show. And I think that's true. I think they were kind of above everyone else in the house. But to me personally, and I don't know how everyone else feels, but Tresean Gore is a guy that just carries that power. So he's always going to be dangerous throughout 3 rounds. But in terms of an all-around skill set and just the game of mixed martial arts, I feel still that Bryan Battle just kind of holds more weapons, a broader skill set, and I think he poses a bigger threat here in more areas. That's why I'm very intrigued in this fight, because if Battle can withstand the power shots, if he can, utilize a game plan to maybe take Gore down, utilize his good grappling and submissions, he could easily win this fight here, but Gore could come in and get a one-punch KO and walk out unscathed. So I think it's going to be a very fun fight. I think it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be gritty, and it will feel like the true tough winner will come out of this one regardless.
Well said. Last one. Hakeem Dawodu is back going up against Mike Trizano, no longer a member of the Mullet Club.
Yeah, unfortunate.
I don't know if that says anything. I don't know if I don't know if at Vegas, I don't know if the odds makers were aware of that, but
yeah.
No, this is a fight that I think is going to go under the radar quite a bit.
This is a cool fight.
Yeah. I like both fighters a lot in their own way, but for Trizano, I got to just say off top, bad matchup for him. Bad matchup. Hakeem Dawodu has pretty much only struggled with grapplers.
Yeah.
Movsar Evloev took him down nearly 10 times in their fight.
Yeah.
He doesn't have very good takedown defense, especially against a guy who will very much push that on him for the whole fight. Mike Trizano, I don't see doing that. And on the feet, I just think Hakeem is a better striker. He's more polished. He's been in fights with better competition. So Trizano could show me a lot by winning this. I still like him, and even with the loss, I do still like him as a fighter. I just think that in terms of matchmaking, I don't think that this is like the good matchmaking that I was talking about earlier. Like, I'm not saying it's bad. I just think that I don't see why you put Trizano with Dawodu here. Like, I think Dawodu's like kind of a step ahead right now. Could I be proven wrong? Of course, but that's how I see it right now.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting fight. And it's down on the prelims. It is definitely going to be overlooked, but these are two guys that have had like pretty big fights relatively for their early UFC career. So I'll be curious to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, but that's going to wrap it up for
holy shit,
this weekend preview edition.
Anything else we should talk about here?
We can mention our regional showcase. We'll be back on Sunday.
There we
go. We will be going over LFA 123.
Hey,
so it'll be the third time featuring LFA on the show. So we will have that on Sunday. So if nothing else, we'll be talking about the results and the recap, obviously, the weekend. So all the fights we talked about here, we'll talk about there, along with the card LFA 123. Hopefully some news happens this weekend. I don't know. We did get a lot over the last couple of weeks. So
yeah, that's true.
We can't get too carried away.
Right.
But Dominic, we'll be back on Monday. We'll be 3-episode week next week.
Hey, here we go.
Wednesday, we're going to do a Reddit roundtable. And then obviously Friday, big preview weekend coming up. UFC 271, the rematch. Bobby Knuckles.
That's right.
Israel Adesanya. Part duh.
And don't forget, the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, and Taito Ivasa is the co-main event, people.
I'm so excited for that. But until then, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, at dslee14. More importantly, go follow, go engage, and go interact with us, with the show, on Twitter, on Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast. Also, real quick, since we are making some small talk here, shout out to Noah for finding some sweet new tunes. If you guys have noticed, a little new podcast intro, a little nosebleeds. If you ain't listened to the betting show, go over there. Got some nice new music for both. Shout out to Noah B on the DJ booth.
yeah, spinning records. That's my thing.
Yes.
No, I appreciate it, Dominic. This is my thing, people. I love lo-fi music. Like, I just love the feeling of it. So when Dominic presented those to me, I was like all in. Like, I'll be the one to admit it. Like, even though I'm the one that found it, like, I was the one that kind of agreed very hard on the original music. But, I kept, obviously, we go back and we'll listen to episodes, or we're constantly checking, like, comments and stuff. And I heard that intro music so much, I got tired of it. And I was like, man, I just had this kind of moment where I was like, I didn't feel like it was a good representation of our content. I don't know. You guys can let us know what you think. I think what we have now better represents kind of the content we have. It more feels like a below average Joe intro song. That's
little rock, little hip hop mixed together. It's clashes. Yeah.
But for me, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram at ntbaker_. If you go to the link in my bio, there is if you go to my bio,
there's a
link that'll take you to a link tree.
Right.
That'll present you
a list of links
to all the platforms, the podcast, all along with social media platforms. So that includes, but it's not limited to.
Hold on, I'm gonna get this here. All the social media platforms and
the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. It's all on there. And there's a couple links for today's sponsor,
Anchor. Shout out to Anchor. There's links related to Anchor, right? Look at Noah, throw me the outro here. But there's a link on there to leave a voice message. I'm getting pissed, okay? Because we're now in February. I said this at the end of January that we wanted one. We didn't get one. Now we're in the first week of February. I want to hear from you. Noah wants to hear from you. You can just tell us what you ate for lunch. Let's be friends. But then there's a second link. If you want to make a monthly donation to the podcast, any money is appreciated as you continue supporting the Joeys and becoming a part of the community. I got to finish the whole thing. Okay, so Noah usually goes, that's it. We're out. Have a good weekend. I'm going to throw that part in. And we'll see you guys on a Monday.